Hi, I'm Megan, the face behind Learn Violin Online. We're so lucky to live in a day and age where there is a ton of great information available on the internet. However, great information alone is not going to help you actually learn how to play the violin. To learn an instrument, you need to follow a step-by-step plan that builds upon itself. You need to focus on learning skills and practicing those skills through various exercises and pieces, which is exactly what you'll get in Learn Violin Online. To show you how much progress you can make with a clear plan to follow, I'm excited to offer this totally free course here on YouTube. This course will teach you all of the basics and includes several free PDF downloads and a free songbook. This songbook will provide you with pieces that are perfect for your skill level, and each piece comes with its own play-along video and tutorial. In today's video, you'll be learning the parts of the violin and how to set up your violin. Let's get into it. First, we'll be going over the parts of the violin and bow because I'll be referencing those in this video and many others. So starting at the base of the instrument, we have the chin rest. That is where we are going to place our chin and our jaw when we are playing. Next up, we have the tailpiece, which holds the fine tuners. The fine tuners are these screws, and they will help you tune the instrument. There are two ways to tune the instrument, which we'll get into more in the next video, but both with the fine tuners and the pegs. The fine tuners adjust the pitch of the strings much more slowly and in smaller increments, so I suggest trying to use the fine tuners to tune whenever possible. If your instrument did not come with fine tuners, that's okay. You can absolutely tune with the pegs, or you can also get fine tuners put on your instrument. Just ask your local luthier or violin shop. Going on up the instrument, we have the F holes right here. I know it's kind of hard to tell. They sometimes look like S's, but they have a little line right there that makes them F's. I also hear people call them sound holes, but that's where the sound comes out. This is the bridge, and these are the strings. We have 4 strings. The lowest string is G string, and it's also going to be the thickest string. The next string is D string. The next string is A string, and the highest string and thinnest string is the E string. This black thing is called the fingerboard, and that's where we will place our fingers to produce the notes. This part of the violin is called the neck. Again, that's where we'll be placing our hand. These are the pegs, so these are the other method that you can use to tune the instrument. They do adjust the pitch in larger intervals, so if you are very, very out of tune, you probably will need to use the pegs, but like I said, we'll get into tuning more in the next video. And then finally up here we have the scroll. The scroll is really just purely decorative. It doesn't have a function, and I just recently, probably like maybe a year or two ago, learned that a scroll that references like a paper that you put into a scroll, you know, like what they read off in the olden days. I didn't know that, but now you do. And then of course we have the bow. This part up here is called the tip. This is the stick. Your bow can either be made of wood or carbon fiber. The one I have right here is a carbon fiber bow, but either way, it's called the stick. Down here we have the winding. This is the grip, and this general thing is called the frog. Now all bows are a little bit different, so if yours is like black here and silver here, or maybe brown or a different color, that is 100% fine. Winding and grip. This is called the ferrule. Honestly, I never hear anyone reference that, so it's highly likely you will never hear that word again. I usually just say silver part, but if you want to know, that's the ferrule. And this is the screw. So this is how you're going to tighten and loosen your bow when you are playing or not playing. This part of the bow is the hair. This is made out of horsehair. Sometimes it's synthetic, but most oftentimes it's actual real horsehair. And you want to try to avoid touching it as much as possible. When we touch the hair, the oils from our fingers get transferred to the hair and wears it out quicker. You also do need to replace or rehair your bow about every year or so, of course, depending on how much you play. When you first get your violin and open the case, it might look something like this. And you might think, oh no, my violin is broken. But it's not broken, it just needs to be set up. So first you're going to need to locate the bridge. It might be in a pocket of your case, or it might have come in a separate plastic bag, but you're gonna need to find this bridge. If you don't have a bridge, reach out to the person or manufacturer that sold it to you, because you should certainly have a bridge. And what you'll notice is that the bridge has a taller side and a shorter side. The taller side is going to go on the same side as the G string. So if you are facing your violin, if you're sitting down and you have your violin facing towards you, just like I do, the G string is going to be the string on the left. The G string is also the thickest string, and it's the lowest string. The strings are G, D, A, and E, with E being the highest and G the lowest. So take that tall side of the bridge and place it underneath the strings on the same side as your G string. Then flip the bridge up so that it's standing. And you can see I have these little grooves in my bridge, which shows me where to place the strings. The bridge should go right across from these little lines in your F holes. Once you have your bridge standing, you will need to tighten the strings or tighten the pegs. So those are up here on the instrument. And the order in which you tighten them doesn't really matter. I'm gonna start with my G string, which is the peg on the left on the bottom. And I'm just gonna tighten it a decent amount until I start to hear a sound. I'm gonna repeat with the other strings. I know that using the violin pegs can be tricky and scary. I know many students are afraid of breaking a string, but I want to assure you that it's happened to everyone. I've broken strings, and if you do break a string, it's really not the biggest deal in the world. The worst thing that can happen is you'll have to get another string, which I understand is a little annoying, but it's not the end of the world by any means. Two common issues arise when trying to use the pegs. The first is the pegs slipping. So that means when you turn the peg, it doesn't stay. It just turns right back. So that was actually happening to me just now. So here's what I did to fix it. So I had the violin in front of me like this. I turned the peg, and then I pressed the peg into the instrument with as much force as I could muster to get it to stay. Okay, you have to press the peg into the instrument. Something else that you might find helpful is to put a little bit of rosin on the peg. Rosin is a sticky compound, so that will help the peg stick. The other problem is it's the opposite. It's the peg sticking too much. If you really can't turn it, you're gonna need to basically do the opposite. So you're gonna wanna take the peg out if you can. And you can also get this substance called peg compound, which I'll leave linked down below, of course, that will help lubricate the pegs and make them move a little bit easier. If you purchased a violin outfit, which essentially means a violin, bow, and case all in one, then you'll probably find some extra goodies hiding out in the pocket of your violin. Some things that you might run across are rosin. Rosin comes in many different shapes and sizes, but essentially what rosin is hardened tree sap that helps our bow stick to the string. So if you are super excited, you take your violin out of the case and you put your bow on the string and it doesn't make a sound, you need to grab your rosin. So what you're gonna do is take the rosin onto your bow hair, just like this, and then rub it up and down. You can also use like a scrubbing motion like that if you need to get a little bit more rosin on it. Do that for a good bit and then try the bow out and it'll probably make a sound. I like to put 1 or 2 swipes of rosin on every time before I practice, just to make sure that my bow is rosined up. but you can put it on as needed. If you find your bow is slipping a lot or sliding or just not producing a really clear sound, then you probably need to put some rosin on. Something else that you might find in your case is going to be a mute. Mutes also come in different shapes and sizes, but what a mute does is essentially make the sound of your violin softer. This can be really helpful if you live in an apartment or you work odd hours and have to practice at odd hours. So how you put that mute on, if you have a mute like this, I'm going to attach it to the A and the D strings, if it'll go on. And then when I'm ready to use it, I'm going to pull it up and place it over my bridge. Something else you might find is a microfiber cloth like this. We're just going to ignore how dirty it is. And this is used for cleaning your violin. So after you play, you want to make sure that you wipe down both your strings and this part of the violin between the bridge and the fingerboard. You want to try to get all that rosin off because you do not want the rosin to build up on the strings or the instrument. If rosin builds up on your strings, it's much more likely that the sound is going to squeak or whistle a little bit, especially on the E string. And if the rosin builds up down here, then it could ruin the varnish of your instrument. You also might come across an extra set of strings, which is just always great to have on hand, and perhaps even a tuner. If you don't have a tuner and or a metronome, I do suggest getting one. I'll link the one I have down below. It's a tuner metronome combo, and I've literally had this since I was at least in high school, so over 10 years. So it's a great investment. But obviously that's helpful for tuning your violin and working on rhythm and things as we get into the learning process. However, there are a bunch of free tuners online and in apps that you can also use as well. After completing today's lesson, you should be familiar with the parts of the violin and bow and have your violin all set up and ready to play. Be sure to check out the description for the free PDF downloads and the free songbook, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in lesson 2.